Good morning and welcome to the Tropical Storm Isaac media briefing. Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Minister for Public Works, Dr. McIntyre, Honorable Minister for the Environment, Honorable Joseph Isaac, members of the media, our technical team from Public Works and Shelters, welcome to today's press briefing. And would like to say welcome to the general public viewing and listening out there. At this time, let me call on Mr. Marshall Alexander to give us a synopsis of the current situation as at 11 o'clock this morning.
Yes, good morning to all. Now for the 11 a.m. update on Tropical Storm Isaac. And they're saying that Isaac should reach the Lesser Antilles early Thursday. A tropical storm warning remains in effect for Dominica as of 11 p.m. last night. And a tropical storm warning means that tropical storm conditions are expected somewhere within the warning area within 24 to 36 hours. Interest in Dominica should continue to monitor the progress of Isaac and to make all the necessary preparations to protect life and property. At 11 a.m., the center of Tropical Storm Isaac was located in altitude by a NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft near 15.0 degrees north, longitude 54.7 degrees west, or about 440 miles east of Dominica. Isaac is moving towards the west near 17 miles per hour or 28 kilometers per hour. And this general motion, with some decrease in forward speed, is expected to continue through the weekend. On the forecast track, Isaac is forecast to move across the central Lesser Antilles, including Dominica, on Thursday. Aircraft data indicate that maximum sustained winds remain near 60 miles per hour or 95 kilometers per hour with higher gusts. Gradual weakening is forecast during the next 72 hours. Tropical storm force winds extend outwards up to 175 miles or 280 kilometers, primarily to the north of the center. Rainfall expectation. Isaac is expected to produce total rainfall accumulations of 4 to 6 inches with isolated higher amounts in higher elevations across Dominica. This rainfall may cause life-threatening flash flooding and landslides or mudslides. Feeder bands from the system has already begun affecting the island. Tropical storm conditions are expected on Dominica by early Thursday. Some coastal flooding is possible in areas of onshore winds. Near the coast, the surge will be accompanied by large waves up to 12 to 16 feet. Swells generated by Isaac will begin to affect the area by this afternoon. These swells are likely to cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions. A small craft warning, a high surf advisory, and a flood warning will be in effect for Dominica as of 6 p.m. today. The next intermediate advisory will be at 2 p.m. with a complete advisory at 5 p.m.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander, for the report. At this point, we'll ask the Honorable Prime Minister to address the nation.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Further, of course, good morning to all of you, my colleague ministers, our friends from the Ministry of Public Works and the Acting Local Government Commissioner, and the media, and of course the residents of Dominica. First, I want us to be mindful of the approaching Hurricane Florence, which will be impacting the Carolinas. So let us pray for our American friends, especially those who will be in the path of Hurricane Florence. We can well imagine their own anxieties and their own preoccupations, but we'll continue to pray for them that the hurricane will weaken and that impact on life and property would not be an issue for them. So let us all continue to pray for them while we pray for ourselves as well, because we're very grateful to the Lord for having this weather system downgraded now to a tropical storm warning, moving from a hurricane watch yesterday to tropical storm warning today. But again, as we would like to reiterate to the public, these occurrences should not be, our response should not be to be less alert and determined to make all the preparations necessary for this weather system. Again, we know we could go back 2 years ago, 3 years ago with Tropical Storm Erica and the impact it had on life and property in our country. The serious destruction which it caused, to the point where we had to relocate an entire village. So we can appreciate this. It transformed the lives in Kolibistri and many of those communities in Pishley and elsewhere. So we need to appreciate the fact that, notwithstanding it is a tropical storm warning, we have to prepare for the fullest extent. Again, the system, the same way it changed from last night to today, the same way it can change in the next few hours and upgrade it. And therefore, our preparation must be the same as it is a Category 5 approach in our country. And again, from the NEPO level, from the National Emergency Planning Organization level, and from the Office of Disaster Management level, we are taking every precautionary measure humanly possible to prepare our country for this approaching weather system. So I would like us to continue our planning, our individual, family level planning. The business community must take note and take heed to secure their own assets and properties. Private citizens must do likewise. We must continue to reach out to the senior citizens, the sick and shortened, the vulnerable in our communities. Let us account for every single person in our village, in our community, in our surrounding. All of these things are part of the planning process or the preparatory process. So we need to play our part as individuals. I have been advised and we have taken the decision and we have accepted the advice to suspend work for the public service on Thursday, 13th September. So there'll be no work for public officers. And again, we would like to call on the private sector to follow in that same manner, to have their employees stay home. I understand that there are essential services, and those essential services will be at work. So people like myself will be at work. But the rest of us in the public service are asked to stay home and to ensure that we can secure ourselves, secure our families and our properties. And we'd like for the private sector to do the same. And this is why I think going forward, we have to implement the legislation that would authorize the NEPO and the cabinet to, that when a decision will be taken in regards to work, it would apply to every employee in the country. So these are things that we need to do in terms of disaster management going forward. And it's a recommendation we're hoping that we can fulfill before the end of this year. So there'll be no work tomorrow. In respect to the security of the state, I shall meet again with the Chief of Police at 2:15 today. And at 5:30 we shall advise the country of some of the security arrangements that will be put in place to secure our citizens and to secure state assets and other private citizens' assets in the country. So at 5:30 the police will have a briefing and the Chief of Police will speak to some of the actions that the police will take to secure the state. Now, we all agree the police has a responsibility and a duty to provide and ensure security of the state. But at the end of the day, security of anyone or any group or any country is a societal responsibility. And we all need to play our part in securing our properties securing ourselves and securing the state. The police will play a part, but we all have to play our part in that regard. So when actions and decisions are taken by the police, we have a responsibility and a duty and an obligation to listen to them, to follow them. So I would like to call on every one of us to respect the authority of the police and to respect the decisions that will be taken by the police to help secure the state. So I want to again appeal to all of us to secure our properties. Those of us who have boats, we need to secure the boats, because do not leave your boat unattended and believe that the government will come in to replace your boat because of your negligence. You have animals, if your animals are close to waterways and in areas that are prone to flooding and landslides and mudslides, you need to bring them into safer ground. These are your livelihoods, and therefore you have a responsibility, a personal responsibility, to secure your livelihoods. Let us do what we need to do as a country. Let us play our part, and let us prepare ourselves. Let us continue to pray, because with prayer all things are possible. I know some of us are overwhelmed with anxiety, reliving our own personal experiences during Maria, but we have to try to remain calm, and we must continue to support each other so that we can all see this process with minimal or no anxiety at all. And it is not a time for us to hide in a room. We have to do what we need to do to prepare ourselves. Again, the source of information, the source of advice is the Office of Disaster Management and the National Emergency Planning Organization. Let us focus on the information coming from there, and because there will be lots of information out in the public which normally causes confusion in the minds of people. So let us focus on the official channels of communication to the country. So again, I want to thank us for all of you for your cooperation and understanding. Let us recognize that the state has to do what it has to do. And finally, for those who are wondering whether I am speaking from Roseau or elsewhere, I'm in fact in Roseau, Dominica, and not any other Roseau in the world. I am here in Dominica. I was on my way to India to have some meetings there on some very important matters, but canceled my trip in transit to return to be part of the preparation of the country for this approaching weather system. So I'm in Roseau. I know there is a Roseau in St. Lucia and so on and elsewhere, but I'm in Roseau, Dominica. Thank you, and God bless you. In these things, I always tell people that when you're faced with anxious moments, you have to smile, and you have to also engage yourself in a few jokes here and there. That will help you ease your anxieties. So a little domino, a little card playing and so forth. Not to take it too seriously as some people do, but do it more in a jovial manner. That will help you manage your anxieties. And as we go along, I'm doing serious things, because preparing for a storm is a serious thing. And but in the process, we have to calm our nerves, and so that will manage our anxiety levels and not allow it to overwhelm us, because if we allow anxiety to overwhelm us, we become paralyzed. And if we become paralyzed mentally and physically, it means therefore you cannot move, or you cannot maneuver yourself in the way that you should maneuver yourself to do what you need to do. And mental paralysis is a thing that we have to avoid and we have to manage very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for the advice to the general public, and we are hoping that everyone will heed. Would like to call on state employees to secure state assets, as well as employees in the private sector to secure your company's assets before you go home, because you will need to come back to a job at some point. At this point, Honorable Joseph Isaac is the minister responsible for disaster management, and at this point I will invite him to share a few words with you.
A special good morning to all. I'd like to recognize the presence of my honorable colleague, Honorable Dr. Colin McIntyre, and our Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit, also senior technical staff of the government service, and also the media. A special good morning to the general public. I'd like to say that we still have an opportunity to do our final preparation for Tropical Storm Isaac, which have been downgraded from a hurricane watch to a tropical storm. Though it has been downgraded, I'm asking everyone to remain vigilant. I'm also calling on all village councils as the leaders and members, parliamentary representatives across the country, and disaster committees at the community level to remain vigilant and do not put our guards down, since the tropical storm can be upgraded at any time. So we really need to just take a close look at it and listen to the radio and do what we have to do. I'm calling on all individuals to take personal responsibility for ensuring the safety of family members, especially the elderly, the disabled, and children. Rest assured that the cabinet and members of NIPU are taking this matter very seriously, so we'd like you to also take it seriously and take your personal responsibility at the household level seriously. At this point in time, I'm assuming that across Dominica, we have done final preparation to ensure that we have our basic necessities for preparation of this potential threat. By now, the private sector companies would have already secured all business assets and would have already discussed with employees final actions to be taken to protect assets if they are not already protected. Particularly, I'm calling on the fisher folks to safeguard themselves on land and also to secure all fishing assets. I repeat, all fishing assets. I'm calling on the general public to remain calm so that you can be prepared and so that you can take necessary action if you are called upon by family or friends to take such actions. Continue to pray, but stay calm and vigilant. And finally, all shelter managers across Dominica should have had everything in place by now. If you are missing small items, I think you should make final preparation, because we do not want our guards to be down. Remember, we are not only prone to wind, but also we are prone to flooding, landslides, and also particularly river flooding. So again, I'm advising everyone who is close to river beds or river banks to avoid being in those areas, since even if we don't have a hurricane, even if it is not upgraded, that there's a serious threat to life and property. So I'm asking you to safeguard yourself and get to safe ground. I would like to ask the mothers, fathers, our spiritual leaders to pray for our country and pray for all of us while we stay focused and calm and vigilant. Thank you to everyone in Dominica for listening to us here this morning. Just stay tuned and we'll just tell you all your different actions you need to take. Meanwhile, you are taking your personal responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for your precautionary notes. I just want to extend on the fisher folks one. Because the system is exiting into the Caribbean Sea, do not just pull out your boat off the water and place it on the beach. You should remove it from the area as much as possible, because you would need in a few days' time to go back to sea with those boats. So please move those gear as far as possible, because there could be some significant sea swells on the west coast. At this time, let me invite the Honorable Dr. Colin McIntyre to say a few words and then to introduce his technical staff.
Thank you, Mr. Shillingford. Of course, the colleague Minister, Honorable Isaac, is here as well with me. It's good news to have read this morning the downgrading of the Hurricane Isaac into a tropical storm. But we should not take this for granted at all. And we should still continue our level of preparedness in terms of this tropical storm. I would like to, my technical staff are here with me, and first of all, I want to acknowledge them. That's Mr. Acting PS and the Acting CT, of course, are the government officials here and the mid there. What I'd like to say this morning here is from the public works point of view, in terms of landslides, mudslides, those of us who are in the areas that are prone to landslides and mudslides, it's not going to hurt you at all to spend a day or two by a friend closer to some safer grounds, okay? Because in spite of the fact that it's downgraded into a tropical storm, we know when it rains in Dominica, it pours. So I'm urging persons who live, on the mountains that are prone to landslides, mudslides, just move out for 2 days or so. If it subsides, we get back into base just to prevent the loss of lives. That's my concern here. Of course, our team is here with us, and they will explain to us exactly where we have deployed heavy equipment and where we continue to carry out works in terms of dredging and redredging and just creating an ease of access in terms of the water flowing back to the ocean. So I don't want to be too long here today, but to really hear from our technical team here as to what we have done in the Ministry of Public Works to make sure that we are prepared to withstand any of the ills of Tropical Storm Isaac.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I wish to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Dr. McIntyre, our Minister for Public Works and Ports, Honorable Isaac, Minister responsible for Climate Resilience Matters, Deputy CTO Lancelot, our officers from the Office of Disaster Management, Local Government Commissioner, members of the press, media, and to all of the listening public. My task here today is a little bit brief, but just to update you on our ministry's plans in preparation for this storm's passing, that is Tropical Storm Isaac or Isaac. Historically, we have observed that recent weather events have impacted the island with rather severe to catastrophic flooding concerns, apart from the wind. As a result, a big part of our preparation is a rather aggressive dredging campaign to clear our rivers and ravines. From last year into this year, we have done significant amount of work in preparation for events like this. And as we all know, preparation is key. As part of our planning, though, I wish to highlight some of the salient points and actions that we have taken as a ministry. One of it is to meet with our senior staff, technical staff, engineers and road technicians. We met this week again, and to confirm the responsibility of each staff to relevant sections of road along Dominica. So they are to give oversight in preparation and also after the event if we have any cleanups to do. Also important is to update our equipment list. That is, we have captured a database, a list of all of the heavy equipment that that are on island, and we were in touch with all of the heavy equipment operators to sensitize them and to alert them and to have them place their equipment where we wanted it, and also to have such equipment fueled when they are called upon to do so. I will now read out a list of areas and equipment that we have deployed. So, one, capital city of Roseau, we have equipment in Roseau. Point Michel to Soufriere, equipment deployed at Point Michel, Castle Comfort, Wall House. The Roseau Valley, we have equipment at Mont Prosper, Loda, Watton-Waven, Coptall, Trafalgar, Louisville. Roseau to Granby, Geneva, Font Saint-Jean, Pichelin, and Granby. Belleville-Chopin. Pont-Cassé to Roseau, we have equipment at Cochrane, Canefield, Antrim, Mont Daniel. Io-Leblanc Highway to Portsmouth, equipment at Belfast, Bioche, Layou Valley, Collyho, Jimmet, Warner, Salisbury, Bells, and Dublin. Portsmouth to Marigot, equipment at Melville Hall, that's Douglas Charles, Anse de May, Portsmouth, Vickers, and Woodford Hill, also in Marigot. Pont-Cassé to White River, that's along the east coast. La Ronde, Grand Fond, Montjean, and Boetica. And Guadiab to Hatton Garden at Cassibruce, Saint-Sauveur. Right, that's it. This is not an exhaustive list. We do have a lot of smaller equipment strategically placed in the smaller hamlets and villages, but in the press for time, I will not really read out that more comprehensive list, but we do have quite a heavy amount of equipment placed in those villages. Let me also inform you that post Hurricane Maria, our state of readiness and our capacity to respond to weather events has been significantly improved. We have on island regional contractors that have been engaged to do river dredging, and also our local capacity, local contractors have also brought in equipment to help in that regard. Also, as preparation for our response and cleanup mechanism, we are in touch with all our local brush cutters, those responsible for doing the vegetation management along our roads. Quite a number of them are equipped with chainsaws. So we have been in touch with them to have their equipment fueled and ready for action. I also want to talk a bit of the river dredging that we have done from last year into this year. We have completed dredging in along about 22 river sections, and I will read out that list. We completed dredging at Picard, Dublin, Collyho, Coulibestry, Salisbury, St. Joseph, Check Hall, Roseau, Forbaron, Bagatelle, Castle Comfort, Loubier, Savonpie, Tatan, Foncolé, Gotta, Blenheim, Forbaron, Meacham, La Ronde, and Hampstead. We have works ongoing at Belfast, Resource Estate, Pichelin, the Melville Hall River, Castle Comfort, Ravins and Point Michel, Roseau at Louisville area, Trafalgar at Papillote, and also at Bioche. In preparation specifically for this storm, I instructed the following priority works. One was the clearance of the mouth of the Roseau River, and as you have seen, that activity was completed sometime yesterday. Ongoing, we have works at the Loubier River. From our last check, there was quite an accumulation of silt under the bridge, so we instructed the clearance. Work started yesterday, should be finished sometime today. Dublin, the old bridge was cleared from the river. to mitigate flooding concerns. Grand Ravine in the Layu Valley, again, we redirected the river to avoid the erosion of one of the bridge's abutments, and also in Fonkole, where we continue to do river dredging. Of course, we have done a lot, but knowing Dominica, there is still a lot more to be done. Also, as part of our planning process, we have procured some emergency bridging. So if in case one of the roads go down and we have a loss of a section, we have on island, and those bridges are stored at the port, about 130 meters of emergency bridging, single lane bridging. So just to give you an idea, we have 2 sets of bridging that can do 30 meter span, another 2 sets that could do 20 meter span, and another 2 sets that could do 15 meter span. So I think we are very much prepared and well stocked to deal with emergencies that would relate to loss of road sections. And also we have the expertise and skill to erect those bridges right here on island. I want to end by saying or encouraging all of us to heed the warnings and advisories issued by the state agencies. I would want to encourage all of us to remain focused and vigilant, and to not let our guards down. Yes, it may be a tropical storm, but we all know what tropical storms can do. We had Tropical Storm Erica. And again, us being a Christian nation, let us continue as always to seek God's guidance in all that we do. Thank you very much. I have my deputy CTO, Lancelot. I'm not sure whether you want to stay. Okay, all right, thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much, PS Works. The Office of Disaster Management has organized several community teams of young people around the country. They're called CERTs, Community Emergency Response Teams, and they're our eyes and ears in the communities. I am told that a lot of them are out there right now, going house to house, informing people of the situation. And we would want them to continue, but we do not want them to put themselves in harm's way. So at some point, they have to take cover and then recommence their work after the fact, after the event. We have provided them necessary training and even some small kits of resources. So they are out there at this point assisting. We also have the National First Response Team, which we have provided training, not yet provided them with resources, but they are made up of police, fire officers, Red Cross and Health and Cadet Corps, and they are a resource of young public officers and the Cadet Corps that we can call on should we need to effect any search and rescue anywhere across the island at this time. Right now, let me call on the chairman of the Shelters Committee, Glenroy Toussaint, to give us an update on shelters.
Okay, let me say a very pleasant morning to everyone. I wish to recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Ruben Skerrit, the Honorable Minister for the Environment, Disaster Management, Climate Resilience and Urban Renewal, Honorable Joseph Isaac, the Honorable Minister for Public Works and Ports, the Honorable Dr. Colin McIntyre. Of course, we need to be reminded that one of the primary functions of disaster management is that of saving lives and to some extent property. And that is why from an IPO standpoint, through the subcommittee, has been vigorously pursuing the possibility and mechanism to ensure that our people are safe in these times. Of course, mindful of the challenges post-Hurricane Maria. I'm very much pleased, notwithstanding all of the challenges, I'm very much pleased this morning to announce to you that 108 emergency shelters have been identified to serve the general public. I need to also remind you that the revised list of emergency shelters have been given to the radio stations and other media outlets so that they can keep the listeners informed as to the shelters available to serve the general public. I also need to inform you that we will be posting the list of emergency shelters on the government website, so persons can in fact go to the government website so that they can in fact see the various shelters that are available for the pending tropical storm Isaac. It's important that we recognize persons who often make their contribution in some way, shape or form. And on behalf of the National Emergency Planning Organization, NEPO, and of course the Shelter Committee, we wish to sincerely thank the many private home owners who have of course committed their homes to be used as emergency shelters. And I really want, without fear of contradiction, to really applaud the homeowners, particularly in the southeastern district, Grand Fond, Rivière Syriaque, Montjean, and Grand Fond, Montjean, Rivière Syriaque, and Dominica. In fact, we're very much pleased that they were willing to offer their homes to, of course, cater for the needs of persons in that area. And of course, the other areas in Dominica, because of course, several personal homes had to be used because we developed what we call a neighborhood approach. And what we mean by neighborhood approach is people helping each other, taking in their neighbors if they feel that their homes are safe. And for that, we have certainly recognized the contribution that they've made in helping in the process of keeping our people safe. And for that, their contribution will never go unnoticed. And for this, NEPO is forever grateful for the efforts. I need to sound the call, however, to the general public. We seem to have a trend in Dominica that we have late minute. So people often come to the shelter late minute. We want to advise, and of course, need to say as well, that we have put our shelter, all the shelter managers and assistant managers have been put on alert. And I need to tell you that hopefully this afternoon, I will be making an announcement, of course, providing that once I get instructions for the shelters to be open, we'll hopefully make that announcement. So I'm asking, of course, we have already put them on alert and we're asking them to continue to listen to the radio. And of course, I will be hopefully this afternoon making an announcement for the time for the shelters to be opened. We want to encourage people to go to the shelters as early as possible. As soon as the announcement is made that the shelters are open, we want to encourage persons within 30 minutes, people to get to the shelters. Oftentimes people come to the shelters at late minute and that creates a lot of chaos and confusion in the shelters. So we're advising people, as soon as the announcement is made, once you know where a shelter is, in fact, people should have already known because I was on the radio last night on DBS, of course, that was also on Vibes Radio and Kyrie FM. And in fact, we were talking of the shelter. So people, in fact, should by now be made aware of the shelters that are available. So we're saying that once you've made that determination that where you are is not safe and you need to be sheltered, you know your shelter, please don't waste time. Just go to the shelters. And when you go to the shelters, do not go, as we call it in local parlance, with your hands swinging. We want people to at least come with some water for at least 24 to 48 hours. Come with some dry food, biscuit or canned food or something of that nature. We want, importantly, for you to secure your documents. You know, oftentimes, you know, it's raining and that sort of thing. You have to secure documents, particularly for persons who are under prescribed medication. Don't forget you have to bring in your medication, take in your medication. That is important. We also want to encourage the general public to help us. We will be very strict in terms of information because we will be registering every single individual who comes to the shelter. And there may be some questions that you may ask. We're asking, we're appealing to you to please answer those questions because it's important. We need to know, we need to account for every Dominican in every shelter, and that is critical. So we're appealing to you to, of course, importantly, answer some of those questions that will be asked of you so that we can have a database on every single family, every single person who in fact would require to be sheltered and who are in the shelters. Importantly as well too is that we are going to be very strict based on, and there's always lessons learned, and there are lessons that were learned in Hurricane Maria. So we're going to be very strict in terms of shelter rules. We're going to be very strict. We are saying that absolutely no weapons, dangerous weapons will be allowed. We're talking of knives, ice picks, guns, scissors, machete, cutlasses. None of those things will be allowed in the shelters. Absolutely no pets. You have to secure your pets before. No pets will be allowed in the shelters. We are saying absolutely no alcohol. Absolutely no alcohol beverage not on the compound of the shelter. We are telling people, I mean, we should understand we have a responsibility. Oftentimes people may come intoxicated, but we are saying as well that we are not going to allow any alcoholic beverages to be served or on the compound of the shelters. We are appealing to the general public. Absolutely no smoking, not cigarette. No, absolutely no smoking will be done at the shelters, because we have to understand we have persons of different background, of different health risks. And so there are people who can tolerate smoking, there are others who can't. So we're saying absolutely no smoking will be done at the shelters. We are trying to make that very, very clear so that people understand. We don't have what we call an equipment to measure noise, but we are saying that we will be very strict on the noise. The noise level has to be as low as possible, because we must be mindful that there are some elderlies who can't take too much noise and anxiety, and already people have anxiety. So we have to ensure that our noise level will be very much lowered in that regard. We want to, of course, outline the importance of each other being each other's keeper at the shelter. And that is what we need to at this time. We have to be each other's keeper. We should be able, in the spirit of helping, of caring. We are caring and helpful people in Dominica. And I think as we go through these times in the shelters, we should be able, and we need to assist and to help in other. Help your brother, help your sister. That is in fact very important. So we really want to call on people. And we want to extend that people should have already had their family plans and individual plans activated, because it's important that this family and individual plan is sort of streamlined into the shelter management plan, so to speak. So we are hoping that people who, if you have not done so, activating your plan. If you do not have a plan, you should have had a family plan, you should have had an individual plan. If you do not have one, you still have time to prepare one quickly. It's not very difficult work to do so, but we are really encouraging people to take it very seriously. Please do not wait last minute as I end. Do not wait last minute to go to the shelters. And when you go to the shelters, please come with something. And when you come to the shelter, just be nice, be cordial, be nice, and just help each other, because we are all in this together. It's one country, it's one people, and it's one accord. And we really want to call on the general public to be supportive and to do whatever you can to protect yourself, to protect your lives, and in that way we will all protect our beautiful Commonwealth of Dominica.
Thanks very much, Mr. Toussaint, for the good information. Thanks for the hard work that you do and the passion you have for the work. I know our media friends may have some deadlines in terms of the news broadcast, but right now we'll open for a few minutes so that they could pose some questions. Curtis Matthew.
Yes, sir. I have a question for the Prime Minister. And the question is, as we monitor Tropical Storm Isaac, what are some of the factors in Dominica now which would influence a decision to probably institute a curfew or more so a state of emergency? Is that a fair question, sir?
Obviously, for a decision to be taken by the cabinet, it will have to be advised by the Chief of Police. And I'll be meeting with the Chief of Police this afternoon at 2:15 to engage him on the further steps he has taken to assure the security of the state. If you follow the news, I'm sure you do, and of course not necessarily yourself personally, but I'm speaking to the whole country, you would have recognized that the governor in one of the states, I believe South Carolina, declared a state of emergency several days in advance of the storm. And so this decision is taken to ensure that as far as practically humanly possible, all the necessary actions are taken to secure first lives. That's our first priority, is to ensure that lives are protected and secured. And secondly, our earthly possessions. And these things are done not necessarily to control people's movements, but more so to protect them. Because as you know, in instances like that, it is always to be to take preemptive, precautionary measures rather than reactive measures. So you have an opportunity to better manage the process in the event of something happening beyond what we would like to happen. And you would have seen that we employed that strategy leading up to burial. And so that gave us an opportunity to assess the impact of declaring a state of emergency in advance of a disaster happening, in advance of the storm impacting the country. And this is not an invention on the part of the Commonwealth of Dominica. You see it happen in many parts of the world where preemptive, proactive actions are taken to ensure that those who are charged with the responsibility of providing services to our citizens before, during, and after a storm have the opportunity to do that on our behalf with little or no hindrances or obstacles in their way. And the fact remains true that if a storm is approaching and we've asked people to go to shelters and prepare themselves, there's really no need for most of us to be on the streets or to be liming or sightseeing. The people who should be really out there are those who are charged with the responsibility of providing the services to us, what we call essential services. So you don't necessarily take the decision to declare a state of emergency or curfew because you think that there may be some security risk to the country per se. Sometimes these are taken to ensure that there is a greater level of control of the space to allow the essential services to carry the duties. And fundamentally too, to protect people from themselves. Because we have to understand in a society, you have different makeup, human makeup, different people with different attitudes and different views and different considerations. And the state must not only be interested in the circumstances of somebody's death, it must also ensure that it can help that person prevent his death where it can. So that the number of considerations, I believe, what we took into consideration when we declared a state of emergency curfew leading up to burial. Because the declaration for the state of emergency has to be properly published, and it must be known to the country, the length and breadth of the country, as required by law. And in a case where, for example, if you have all of your telecommunication systems down, no electricity, no radio communication, you may have a difficulty in communicating to the public on this. So the number of considerations that will be taken to declare this. But as far as the NIPO is concerned, as far as the police is concerned, as far as the cabinet is concerned, if we declare a state of emergency and a curfew, it is really to secure the state and to secure human lives and to protect human lives and to ensure that those who are charged with the responsibility of providing services to us in this time. Because the fact remains, while some of us, the majority of us, would be in our beds, maybe sleeping, maybe up, there are some of us who have to be on the streets. There are some of us who have to be at the health clinics and the hospitals. There are some of us who have to remain in our offices to coordinate things. You understand? And if these people can't get from point A to point B to provide that service to you, because we have hundreds of people just driving around and seeing how high the water is or how much rain is falling and so forth, then it creates a problem. You understand? So let's leave it to this afternoon when we hear from the police. So we will not deal with a hypothetical situation, but we'll deal with a practical situation. But just to say to you that it is not a decision that we take lightly, because for me personally, ideologically and philosophically, I have a difficulty in containing people's movement, people's mobility. You understand? People have a right to move from one point to another. But the drafters of our constitution and our laws recognize, and also it's a global matter, recognize that there are circumstances for the safety of everyone that certain actions need to be taken to curtail the movement and the mobility of some or all in order to protect all. And that's how we look at it. So another decision we'll take because we want to take it. But as you have seen in the United States, in the Carolinas, I mean, the state of emergency may have been declared since Thursday, Friday of last week. You understand? Several days in advance, to allow the state agencies to be activated in a heightened emergency manner. And so everyone is focused on preparing those states to secure the citizens. And even in some countries, there are mandatory evacuation. So when they say you have to move, you have to be moved. There are some cases where they do not go through the full extent of mandatory evacuation, but they ensure that the state knocks on your door and goes to you, and if you decide to stay, then you're staying at your own risk. And they will say to you, do not expect us to come if you are in danger, because we're giving you a deadline by which to move. If you don't move by that deadline and something is happening to you, you are on your own, because the essential services, the police, the fire, the ambulance, the EMS, etc., will not risk their lives to come to save you because of your stupidity. You understand? So even if we do not have those laws in Dominica, the state has gone to great lengths to ensure that every community in Dominica has a hurricane shelter, and that the resources are made available to ensure that these things happen. There's a mix of public buildings and private properties, and we appreciate all those who have made those available. And the state has a mechanism. It has services, it has individual staff and resources to prepare the state for those eventualities. And we have to understand that so for example, a business owner might be in his bed sleeping, but the police is out there protecting his property. You see? And we have to understand that if we know that we live in our home is in a water park. So we had some flooding many times, and we're hearing rain is going to come, and we're hearing that there will be potential possibilities of flooding. Why do you want to stay in your home and leave when your home starts to flood? So we are saying to people that you have a responsibility to determine the safety or lack thereof of your property, and to make that personal family decision to relocate. There's nothing wrong with you to go to a shelter. If you feel that, one, you may be alone and you have no help, you may be living in a vulnerable part, your home may be in a vulnerable location, make a decision to go by a family or friend, or a shelter that has been declared as an official shelter. So the state of emergency is not something we take lightly, and curfew to curtail people's movements. But as we saw post Maria, had we not put this in place, the situation would have been even more difficult. And there are many people who do not respect the curfew, and who have to be brought before the courts This is why for burial, the police position was that it was not going to accept and to tolerate anyone being on the streets. So I believe that there may have been some people who were arrested, from a report I saw, leading up to burial because they were out during the curfew. And our position to the police is that you have to carry out your duties and your responsibilities according to law. And if a state of emergency is declared leading up to this tropical storm and there's a curfew in place, every one of us, including myself, must respect it. You understand? So even if I had the authority to move, I insisted I needed to get a pass, even if I was being driven by the police. You see what I'm saying? I said, look, I did my pass. He said, no, you're fine. I said, no, I said, I did my pass. You know, you need to give me the pass signed by the chief of police so that I have it. I have one, you know, because my position was that if there are times I would have to maybe move myself, drive myself to, you know, and so I also made to ensure that everybody respected the order. You understand? And that's what we need to do to help the situation, because at the end of the day, we will do all that we can at NIPO and ODM, etc., etc. But if we individual citizens don't play our part, we're going to have a challenge. Sorry for a very long response to what appeared to have been a very straightforward question, but I felt it necessary to give that long response, an explanation to clarify this stuff, because I know that there has been concerns in the public domain about state of emergency. There are some who felt that we went too far in preparing for burial and so forth. But I rather go too far than to fall short and have a problem. So the position of government, the position of NIPO is that we will go to the fullest extent possible, humanly possible. Now, everything is not perfect, so we don't have a perfect system. We don't have a watertight system. I want to say this up front, you know. But as far as humanly possible to prepare the state. You understand? And that's our position going forward. Anytime we're faced with such, we're going to put a serious, robust system in place to prepare the citizens. Yeah.
Anything else? Anybody from the media? Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you.
But I want to thank you, and of course thank the media. I would suggest respectfully to the media that we avoid paraphrasing things. You know, let us play the voices of those who have spoken, so let them say exactly what they have said, because in paraphrasing we may use a different tense, or we may use a comma in the wrong place, and we change the meaning of the entire statement. That is just English 101, you know. So have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Okay, members of the media, 5:30 this afternoon, and general public, 5:30 we'll be back with another media briefing. Thank you, everyone.